Hello, this is Mark Smith with Family Tree Counseling Associates, and we're going to pick up with part two, the slaughter of trust. My response to Susan from Canada and her further writing to me. Susan wrote in response to an email that I sent her, a brief email just offering help. She said, when I sent that email to you, I was utterly broken and sobbing for anything that might ease the pain of betrayal. The triggers over and over, the scenes in my head, the lies, the slaughter of my trust, and the endless need to know details over and over. The need to know details over and over, that's your abandonment issues, Susan. And you need to download my book, Managing Abandonment Issues Through Recovery. You will see yourself on every page of that book. Abandonment pain is the worst pain known to mankind, and the worst way a married person can be abandoned is through the betrayal of an affair. Why, she writes, unspeakable pain. I cannot even truly remember what I said and never really expected you to reply, so thank you. So I replied, yes, Susan, it did seem like you were a bit of a mess when you sent that email. And the why of why this has happened, I spoke about in the last video. Mother Nature's way of telling you the truth about you and of trying to heal you. This was coming. This was coming to you from day one of meeting your husband. The most important thing at this point, Susan, is are you both able and willing to do the work? There's 5 qualities I've looked for, and those of you who've watched videos, you've heard me go over these, but it bears repeating. It's really solid material. Number 1, are both of you highly motivated to do the work of fixing yourself? Not fixing the marriage, fixing your broken, wounded self. Number 2, are you teachable? Can you open your mind, Susan, to the things that I'm trying to teach you? Number 3, do you have a lot of pain, but is it overwhelming, debilitating, destructive pain? Susan, you sound like you have too much pain. You don't need a hospital to work on post-traumatic stress disorder. You need to change how you think and get out of victim mentality. That is priceless feedback right there, I'm telling you. So, number 4, are you able to trust a therapist, a message? If you'll trust what I'm teaching you, it will save your marriage. Both of you have to do the work. And then the 5th thing is follow through, and that's watching videos, reading books, making appointments for therapy. We can do this, but you both have to have those 5 qualities. So the thing that will cause your divorce and will make you miserable the rest of your life is abandonment issues and victim mentality. I've worked with many adults whose fathers abandoned the family for another woman, and that was awful, and it triggered abandonment. But many times more damage is done if the wife and mother who's left gives up at that point and becomes the eternal victim and starts drinking or venting or triangling or hating and never moves on with their life. Honestly, that has done more damage to the next generation than the fellow who cheated and abandoned, because it's also a form of abandoning the children. I'm telling you things that are true here. Susan writes, my husband was so loved by our daughters and by me. He was king in this family of women, and he did not know or care. He disintegrated into an abusive, angry stranger who was having an affair with a person in our extended family. And that's what it looked like, Susan, but that is not the truth. He disintegrated into who he was. That angry, abusive person got put in there when he was 4, when he watched his dad beat his mom, and probably other abusive incidents from his childhood, including being sexually abused when he was 10. But that was in there the whole time. And it just took until the 35th year of marriage for this needy character to, emerge from who he was. So he showed who he really was finally, and it's there to help you learn about yourself. You've got to change how you think about this. So he turned into somebody, she writes, who would blame me for everything. And he walked away from family. He walked away from home. He walked away from marriage. He walked away from his job. He walked away from everything. So Susan, I'm going to share something personal with you, and I've shared it in my book. I was that guy. In 2007, August 31st, I packed up my belongings and I left my beautiful home, my 3 gorgeous children, and my lovely wife, loving wife, good wife, because I had this inner neediness. My mother severely abandoned me when I was a child, severely, and she raged and criticized. So long about year 45 of my life, several women came across my path who were angry and critical and emotionally reactive and abandoning. And it's as if somebody took me over. There was this wounded little character that I didn't even know existed. I was the good guy, the Christian man, the counselor, the saver of marriages, always perfectly committed to the marriage and never even thought about indiscretion. And yet at age 45, it's like my walls were down, and this needy character, he took me over for about 3 years. And I woke up 3 years later, and my marriage was over, and it breaks my heart to this day. It never should have happened, other than it should have happened because it needed to happen. And it was very unfortunate, but it was the truth about me. And unfortunately, I believe it was the truth about my former wife. And she didn't have somebody like me to teach her the things that I'm teaching you. Susan, you and your husband do not have to get a divorce, and you don't have to be miserable, and you don't have to go for treatment for post-traumatic stress disorder. You need to learn the truth about who you are and where you came from, and who your husband is and where he came from, and what marriage is, and the fact that you were never abandoned. Not so much you were abandoned and betrayed, but you weren't victimized. You needed to be abandoned and betrayed. That's the wickedness about what love is. I've often said, when I arrive into heaven, I'm going to call a meeting with God himself and say, "Sir, is there any other way that we could have engineered the emotional healing of wounds from childhood besides reenacting whatever we went through as a child in our marriages?" But I already know the answer. The answer is going to be no. God is a merciful God, and he's a loving God. And the only way to heal those kind of wounds, to tear down those kind of walls, unfortunately, is to reenact, to pick people on purpose, but unconsciously, who are exactly the dangerous people that we grew up with. And they're going to hurt us in the same way that we were wounded and hurt as children. That's the God's honest truth. So honestly, I have a lady I work with, and her husband had an affair, and she was brutalized, and she couldn't sleep, she couldn't eat, she couldn't think, she couldn't work. But you know what? She got in recovery for her childhood abandonment, and her husband got into recovery, and they're very happily married now. And I often tell her, it's a gift. The pain's a gift, and she knows it is. She just doesn't want to hear it, and she jokes with me and she cusses me under her breath, but it's the truth. The pain of your adult life is a gift, and it's your teacher, and your significant other is your teacher. They're there to teach you who you are and where you came from. So Susan writes, I will always remember the anguish and the catastrophic shock as I felt the blood drain from my life. The blood doesn't have to drain from your life. Yes, it was catastrophic, and yes, it was shock, and yes, the blood drained from your life that wasn't true. You weren't emotionally healthy. He wasn't emotionally healthy. You both came from a complete and utter mess of a childhood, and you had no business acting like you were the Waltons. You were never the Waltons. You know, you were messed up like the rest of us, and it was time for truth to be told. So she writes, I am on a 5-month list for post-traumatic trauma treatment. There are days when I feel like I will die before I get there. Stop it. Stop thinking in a way that is so geared into victim thinking. This experience, yes, it was so horrible, and my heart breaks for you. But there's a message. You can stay miserable for the next 30 years, and trust me when I tell you that the pain of this will stay fresh. It doesn't get better with time unless you change how you think. You'll be just as miserable in 30 years as you are today. Or you can be like the woman I talked about in the last video, who 10 minutes into her first session was in recovery and had changed how she thinks. So what I'm sharing, I mean, it really can change your life forever. And if you change how you think, it can really quickly give you hope, and it can make sense of it all. What I'm sharing, it makes sense. It really does. It pieces together all the pieces of your entire life, your early childhood, your grandparents, your siblings, your place in your family, who you married, it all makes sense. It all fits together. So she writes, we're attempting to be married, but I've been unable to commit. It is not a rebuilding of our marriage. Our marriage was murdered the second he touched another woman. No. Your marriage wasn't murdered the second he touched. The innocence of your marriage was murdered. Your denial about how vulnerable you were was murdered, but your marriage doesn't have to be murdered. I'm telling you what's going to murder your marriage. What's going to murder your marriage is your victim thinking. He's there. It sounds like he's ready to work and he's ready to commit. Take him up on it. So Susan writes, your associate has been in touch. I thank you so much. I look forward to the video. I don't know if you do. And the feedback, that would be much more than okay. And again, thank you. So what I'm proposing is a recovery process where there's these 4 steps of recovery. Number 1, your walls come down, and that's what this is for, to tear down your denial about who you are and where you came from. You came from brokenness and you came from abandonment, I assure you. Don't tell me that you came from the Waltons. You know you didn't. So the second thing is having insight. That's what I'm trying to get you to do, is I'm trying to flip the light switch on. I'm trying to teach you. I'm trying to give you insight into why this happened. There's a reason why it happened. It all fits together. And the third thing is crying and grieving. But what you've done is you have the crying, but you don't have the insight. It's like an airplane with one wing, and you're crashing and burning because you got the pain, but you don't have the truth. This is the truth. This is the missing piece. This is what will change your future forever. My iPad's about ready to run out of juice. I should sign off. Susan, contact me. Talk to me. I'm the guy you need to talk to. Read my books, watch my videos. It will change you. So folks, subscribe to us on YouTube, Family Tree Counseling on YouTube. Buy my books. This week, for the next 3 days, they're on sale, 30% off, familytreecounseling.com. And also, again, we have 10 therapists from $30 up to my fee of $175 who can help you change how you think and change your life and save your marriage. And marriages are priceless things, and they need to be saved, they need to be salvaged. Because you married the right person, both of you just have to do the work. So thanks for watching the video today. God bless.